signed up?
Yes, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the July 21st regular town council meeting. And glad to see you guys here and that everybody's well. If you please let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you. I would like to ask for the minutes to reflect that Dan Jackson recently passed away, and Dan worked for the town of Jamestown from May 1990 to December 2011. So I worked with him for about 15 of those years. So he was not just a coworker, he was a friend. He drove the garbage truck, and this was days before the Facebook where everybody could take a picture and put it on Facebook, but we would have parents call or even take the time to write and put in the water bills how much the kids enjoyed Dan. He would go through the neighborhood and toot the horn and wave at them whenever they came through, and the kids would get so excited that they would be at the window or standing in the yard. I know his wife Deborah and his family, his friends, his children, grandchildren would miss him. So I just pray that you keep his family in your thoughts at this time. And please bow your heads for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Let's see, the first thing is to ask if there's anything that needs to be added or deleted to the agenda, and I believe the town manager has something.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to add budget amendment number 4 to the consent agenda. Also like to add a closed session for General Statutes 143-318, 11A3 to discuss matters relating to attorney-client privilege. Case Lori Herring at 2216 Guilford College Road, First Town of Jamestown, and Michael Young.
Okay, we entertain a motion to accept those amendments.
Motion to accept those amendments and approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, then those changes are accepted. And I guess with that same motion, John, you did approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
Is that okay with you, Katie? We made those in one motion? Okay, thank you. Katie, do we have anyone that wants to sign up for public comment?
Nobody signed up.
Okay, thank you. I think we have also here consideration of amendment to the lease agreement with Jamestown Public Library. And Kenny, I believe you have some comments on that.
Yes, this is the agreement. We're trying to amend the existing agreement with Jamestown and the library, and we're trying to get the contract more in tune of what how we're actually operating. But due to the lack of time to review it, spoke with our town attorney, and we would like to continue this on our August 18th meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Council, a motion to continue this to August 18th?
Motion to continue until August 18th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is passed on for August the 18th. And now I have the pleasure, Art Wise, would you please come forward, and I will stand 6 feet away from you. Nothing personal. And present you with this resolution honoring Arthur Wise. Whereas Art Wise has given of his time and talent serving on the Town of Jamestown Planning Board from August 2010 to August 2020. Whereas he was appointed by his fellow board members to serve as chair in 2015, I remember it well, and continued to serve in that capacity until 2019. Whereas Wise decided to step down from his role as chair in 2019 and was appointed to serve as vice chair for the remainder of his term. And whereas through his involvement on the planning board, he has contributed to constructive change in our community. And whereas Art has supported well-planned, quality growth that enhanced Jamestown's quality of life and protected the small town community character and preserved Jamestown's historic and cultural resources responsibly. Whereas the citizens of County Jamestown have been most fortunate to have had a person of your capabilities and dedication. Whereas his service in both his public and private life have been given willingly and cheerfully, and he has contributed immeasurably to the success of community endeavors and to the betterment of the quality of life for many of our citizens. Now therefore, I, Martha S. Wolf, Mayor Pro Tem, and on behalf of the town council and our citizens, do hereby extend to Art Wise our deep appreciation for his distinguished service to our community. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be spread upon the pages of the official minute book of the town of Jamestown to stand as a tribute to the work and service of Art Wise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. You will be-
Wait, speech.
One more thing.
Yeah, make a speech.
And we do have one more thing.
Oh.
In recognition of your service, honor of 10 years of dedicated service to the town of Jamestown, a grant has been ordered and will be proudly displayed in Red Miller Park.
Oh, well, thank you, thank you. Well, one thing I would like to say is I had the honor of serving with Gary Miller, and he was a fantastic mentor to me. And so I thank him for teaching me,
Yeah.
and I thank the folks at Jamestown. It was an honor. So thank you very much.
You will be missed.
Thank you, sir.
Be sure to come back after that short little break you're supposed to have, right?
Okay, Katie, I believe you are next on the consideration of appointment of a new planning board member and alternate member to the planning board.
Good evening, council. As you all know, there is currently a vacancy on the planning board. 3 people have applied to be considered for the position. Dennis Shull, who is currently serving as an alternate, Jane Payne, and Al Stewart. Staff is requesting that council appoint someone to fill the vacancy. Someone will also need to be appointed to become an alternate if council decides to put Dennis Shull as a planning board member.
Dennis is currently the,
The
currently
alternate,
the-
yeah. I believe Dennis, we appointed him as an alternate back in February.
That's correct.
And his application had been on file for
For a very
many
long
years. And then Al Stewart and Jane Payne, I think their applications have been pretty close
That's correct.
recently put in.
Do you need separate motions for the alternate and the full-time?
You can do it as one.
Make a motion to appoint Dennis Scholl as the new member to replace Art and Jane Payne as the alternate.
I had a question beforehand.
Okay.
That's okay. So I know that we traditionally do it this way, that the current alternate moves up and everything like that. I do, I feel like Jane Payne's both legal and historic society expertise make her very valuable on the planning board, especially now knowing the types of things that we're facing. But I know that that alternates pretty much just, you know, if they come to the meetings, they sort of sit in the wings and don't really have a voice around the table. Is there an opportunity for alternates to,
Well-
I know that they're not able to vote, but I mean, could they sit at the table and have more of the discussion, or does it really have to be that separate?
Well, typically an alternate would fill in for a person if they can't attend. I would have to look at their specific rules. I don't think that they can sit at the table, but
Okay.
they're always encouraged to attend all the meetings that they want, and be as involved as they want to be.
yeah, as an alternate, I was there quite a bit, and I mean, different room. So
Yeah.
It just depends on the circumstance. I, like you, I mean, Jane's credentials in terms of what she brings as far as a potential active planning board member versus being an alternate, particularly now, feels like it would be a better choice. I don't want to circumvent the process. I'm not trying to imply one way or the other, but I have a concern based on the fact that we've got a lot going on. We have a need, so we need to have, unless there's a compelling, last in, gets the first opportunity. Now, in fairness, I benefited from that because I went through that exact process, so I don't want to be critical.
It's more of an informal precedent. It's totally up to your discretion.
Well, I think you would have to, if you wanted to change the number of members on the planning board, you'd have to update the rules and the procedures. I don't see why, and we've always said alternates are encouraged to come to the meetings. They're just not required unless they're filling in for someone who's absent. But there would be nothing wrong to have the alternate encouraged to come. I don't know if sitting at the table necessarily as much as to be there involved and hear the what is being done at the meeting, and then as an alternate as well as a citizen can still voice her opinions to the board.
I will say, as an alternate, I wasn't very good at keeping my mouth shut, so I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you'll vouch.
Well, and
You would
yeah,
Been an alternate on the Park
Yeah.
Lake and on planning, and planning did the,
The Board of
what's the thing
Adjustment.
when we do
The
the
hearing.
variance. I've sat on one of those
Yeah.
as an alternate
Yeah.
because I had to fill in.
right.
It's up to the person if they want to engage.
Yeah.
They're just like any other citizen when they come in. And Katie's really good, and anybody's really good about giving the information and saying, you're encouraged to come, and this is
Yeah.
the information. So I would think that
Right.
somebody who's put time in the boots and been there as an alternate should get the first choice. And then
Yeah.
let the alternates come in and take their advice. They have the right to have input. I would suggest that that person, if they have that much input, that much stuff, to really be involved in it
Yeah.
and be introduced to that new board, saying, these are the credentials this person comes
Yeah.
with, and hope that the other members would utilize that.
Right.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, I think we're all more or less in agreement on who the people are, it's just the order of operations.
Well, I'm thinking that would be to, like you say, encourage Jane. You're an alternate. These are when you're required, of course, to vote, but would love for you to be at these meetings and to share your thoughts and ideas with the board as an alternate and as a citizen.
Yeah, because Lord knows I did.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if, at the actual meetings, if,
Mhm.
a question occurs to her, based on her, transportation experience, for example, that wouldn't maybe to somebody else, would she
Yeah.
be able to ask that?
Usually if they attend the meetings, they sit in the audience and they're not
Right.
at the actual table.
So that's what I'm wondering, is there, not expanding the board and not giving any new people a vote, but I mean, would there be a possibility of,
I would have to look at the rules of
Okay.
procedures of
Okay.
that, so I'm not
Mhm.
exactly sure.
Do you want to table it?
Well, I mean, I think if we're in agreement on who the representatives are, I would go ahead and pass who the representatives are. But then you would have to instruct or find out how, what instructions to give her as to her, where she was to sit or her involvement. I think the board would certainly welcome her questions or anything she had to add. I don't think she could be introduced as that. This is our alternate who wants to take an active role as an alternate, and maybe even give her a chance to ask questions as of that.
Yeah, I think Lawrence makes a good point about not wanting to shortchange somebody who's already been on that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I agree with that. Just, again, I guess my concerns are, the scope of everything we've got going on.
Mhm.
We need best boots on the ground to be influencing the decision. So.
Mhm.
that's the only
and she
way.
just seems to have a different kind of background than, I mean, it's a unique
It is.
combination of both the historic
Good
and
point.
transportation and the legal. So,
Mhm.
I agree. I don't want to skip over anyone or make it seem
Yeah.
like someone is a better human than
Right.
another person or anything like that. But at the same time, I certainly don't want to leave any of our expertise just sort of silent in the corner when we
Right.
could really use them.
Mhm.
So Dr. Meyer, I think that it.
Well, there is a motion on the table.
Right, but I have one more question.
Mhm.
To your point, Rebecca, I mean, do you have enough information without her having to research this any further? Or are you comfortable with the current state that we could either?
I mean, I think if, we just make sure that both Jane and, Jason and any other alternates know that it would be beneficial for the town if they could be at any meeting they possibly can, and not just when someone's going to be missing.
Sure.
And that type of thing. And that if there is the opportunity for them to be able to to ask questions or things when appropriate, we can look into that. But I would be comfortable as long as we're kind of on the same page
Okay.
about that.
In that case,
You made a second.
Yes,
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. It was good discussion. I think now is that Ross is here to give the quarterly report for the golf course.
Good evening, council. Hope everybody is well. Now my glasses are fogged up.
Yeah.
go ahead. I mean, I'm not saying you pull it off. It's tough. It's tough.
So our fourth quarter report for the golf course. Rounds this year, 5,300 compared to 10,000 last year. And then the rounds played for the year as our budget ended. At the end of June, 24,000 rounds compared to a little over 27,000 last year. So considering the number of days closed, I feel like that those numbers turned out pretty well. We were within. We did a lot of catching up when we reopened. And our clubhouse rentals for the season were down a little, 8,700 compared to a little over 11,000 from last year. And then just a few quick little blips on our daily operations. We have started to slowly go back to normal operations as far as hours are concerned. We're still closing a little earlier in the evenings, and that's just to allow the staff to properly sanitize the carts and everything that needs to be sanitized. So we're starting again back to normal hours in the morning, but so we're cutting it a little shorter than normal in the evenings. Both of our dining areas and the grill remain closed, but we're still doing takeout. So of course, all the golfers are glad we still have food available. And of course, the outdoor patio is available for folks to sit. We have a few tables out there to sit. So, and we're still at this point trying to avoid tournaments, golf tournaments, large outings, large gatherings, and that sort of thing. So we still have large groups that come out, but we spread those out into tee times where they're in increments instead of everybody gathering and starting at once. So that's really all I have. I don't know if any of you have any questions or.
I've got a couple.
Sure.
First off, I don't envy what you've been up against this year because it's been so up and down. I don't see, I don't think anybody can say one way or the other as far as business. It's just a good job trying to keep the wheels on the track in the first place. Looking at next year from a marketing standpoint, okay, on the mic there. Sorry about that. From a marketing standpoint, looking at next year, do we have has there been any plan looked at in terms of, like, for example, a couple of years ago, this has been stuck in my head for a while, so I'll just say it one more time. There was an effort made by one of the local newspapers to try to create a marketing pathway amongst all the different golf courses in the area to try to link them together. Have we looked at anything along those lines? Has there been any discussion around, from a planning standpoint for next year?
I don't know, I don't believe that there's a definitive plan that's out there as far as, for this year, next year. And I am familiar with those type of marketing things that are out there. And most of the time, and we can certainly have a different meeting on this, but a lot of times, those require discounting. As far as free golf or things, and so we've got to be very careful on who we're dealing with. We don't want to, proper word I'm looking for, maybe reduce our value.
Sure.
And so we've got to be careful when you deal with, those companies or whoever that is that do these promotions.
I'm with you.
But I'm certainly up for, we look at ideas, we look at memberships, a lot of different courses do a lot of different things, and we certainly look at that. So
I was just curious if we've taken any steps looking at next year, because this year, honestly, I mean, let's just get through this year.
yeah,
I don't think anybody's going to fight that one, but I think as we look ahead, now's the time to really be thinking, well, what do we have in mind for 21? Is there anything that we're looking for? And just, again, there are things we can save money on by making good decisions. I'm just wondering from a driving the business standpoint, if there are any other additional steps that we can take as we look forward. So I was just curious where we're at on that.
yeah, and golf is booming right now,
Yeah.
like other outdoor activities.
Right.
Yeah. There's a surge of new golfers. There's a surge of rejuvenated golfers.
Well, I was going to ask
How
that.
many times I can tell you that I see the guy that, he went in his garage and pulled out his golf clubs.
Yeah, dusted
Dust
them off. Yeah.
and-
Well, I wonder, since we reopened, have the rounds of golf continued to be high, or have they leveled off? I know in the
Continued.
beginning, but they've continued to rise or stay. They haven't
Continued.
leveled off.
I just looked at a number real quick, not jumping ahead, but July of last year compared to July of this year, I mean, we're up 25% already when there's 10 days left in the month.
Oh, really? Uh-huh.
So, the latter part of May and June, it's been
Holding up with the heat and the
very
dry
well,
weather.
very well. We did our greens aerification the
Yeah.
first week of July,
Right.
and they did heal quicker than normal.
Okay.
And
Are you going to do
There.
a lot of watering? Yeah,
so,
Especially this time of year.
there's no rain in sight.
the greens love the heat.
The comment I wanted to pass along was that a couple of the neighbors that play the golf course have talked about, and a tip the hat to the folks doing all the work out there, that the course looks probably better than it's ever been.
Wow, that's a great
So,
compliment.
And that's from some avid golf players that are playing the field and playing our course as well. So please
Well-
share that with them, that they're doing an excellent job, and folks are watching.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
I will do that.
Yeah, so I'm working out there this morning. It wasn't nice outside either. so
No, it's,
more power to them.
It's really,
I'll
yeah.
pass that along. I will.
Any other questions, council?
No.
I had mentioned to Kenny that, we'd asked for John Crow to come give us a report every quarter or so, but like to get him to come the next couple of months and give us his report on greens and plans he's got for projects out there for the fall.
Sure,
So maybe
Sure,
August,
that'd be great.
September, y'all can work that out.
sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. Thank
Good.
you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Keep cool out there. Now we've got the consideration of approval for funding of the library, recreation, and cultural historic services. Miss Judy?
Okay. So we've, talked quite a bit about changing the process in which we fund these types of services, library services, recreational services, and historical or cultural type services. So in thinking about this, the library probably is maybe our main emphasis, at least beginning of the year, with our old process of actually just funding nonprofit grants and giving them money on a reimbursement basis, except in the library's case, we would have, written them a check already as of July 1st to help them fund their first quarter of operations for the year. Guilford County, once again, it will fund the library, but they're doing it now on a reimbursement basis. So they have to, spend the money first and then they get it back. So my main thought for this evening would be to go ahead and get you to approve to go ahead and pay the first quarterly payment to the library for library services. We are working on the amended lease as well as a contract to provide the services for the remainder of the year. And we will bring those to the next meeting. We're trying to kind of coordinate those together and make sure that, and meet with some library, some Gary Haynes and
Yeah.
maybe some other people, and just making sure that we're on the same page as far as maintenance that the town wants to do for the library, mainly the building and that kind of thing, and then what the library itself would. Write a check to the library for the first quarter, which based on the amount of budget that we did put in for the library services, which was $52,000, which that came from
I think, Matt, you're going to do an introduction.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. It is my distinct honor to introduce to you Win Scott. Win is the son of Mark Scott and the grandson of Wes Scott, as you well know, in town. And he would like to present to you his Eagle Scout project. Win? Thank you.
I cannot believe that is Win. I remember first time I saw you won your first race and you were about that high.
Yes, ma'am.
You've grown.
Yes, ma'am, I have. Good evening, council. As you said, my grandparents have lived in Jamestown for almost 50 years. My parents have lived in Jamestown for 2 decades, and I've spent all 17 years of my life in Jamestown. So when it came time to decide who owned the beneficiary of my Eagles, town of Jamestown was an obvious choice. Fitness and exercise are important to me, and I believe it is important to the community as well. So I decided that marking every quarter mile going in both directions from Marin Miller Park would help encourage people to exercise and possibly track how far they walk, jog, bike, or exercise in general. Town planner Matthew Johnson and the recreation director Scott Coakley have been great to work with. We ultimately decided that using 11 stone-colored brick pavers, twice the size of the current bricks, would be placed at the start and every quarter mile going in each direction from Marin Miller Park. I've ordered those brick pavers from Pine Hall Paving, who did the engraved bricks at Marin Miller Park. And these will be placed, they'll have the Jamestown logo on each brick. and we'll have the mile marker and the numerals in the center. There will also be a sign heading towards Flowers Bakery, will be the hat trail, because it goes very close to the historical marker where Beard's Hat Factory was. And going in the other direction toward the intersection of Guilford and Guilford College Road will be the Arms Trail, because it ends at the historical marker where the Confederate Arms Factory was. The original cost was estimated to be around $300, and I've raised that money. Mr. Johnson thought that it would be easier for people to see as they're jogging or riding bikes if the bricks were twice the size and a lighter color yellow to offset the current reddish brick pavers. I completely agree with this. Therefore, the cost will be around $600. And I'm not asking the council for any money. I'll raise the extra money, but if you know of any person or business that would like to contribute to the project, please put them in touch with Mr. Johnson or myself. I believe the council and the residents of Jamestown will benefit from this project greatly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Win.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I have one question. I read on here, it said the staff would be doing the installation or helping with the installation.
Yes, ma'am.
What about maintenance of the markers? If they needed to be replaced, they got broken or stolen or something, who would maintain those?
Yes, ma'am. So I haven't considered that too much. That's a great point. That'll be definitely something we'll have to look into, getting some extra funds to help out keep the maintenance, because I know part of the Eagle project is being able to maintain it for a permanent amount of time. So,
Okay, all
yes,
right.
ma'am. That's a
Okay.
great point.
And I guess there is a printed map showing these locations.
Yes, ma'am. So right now there's the Go Far sign,
Uh-huh.
which kind of marks that, but me and Matthew are working on a plan to get that mapped out, so it shows exactly where each of the marks are and where the trail starts and where it ends.
Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. It's great.
Thank you very much.
Well, I move that we grant Wim permission to proceed with this project and pledge support of town staff to assist with installation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And thank you so much
you very much,
for
guys.
doing that for Jamestown.
Yes, ma'am. I love to.
And please tell your dad and your granddaddy hello.
I love it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Lawrence, did you have any more of those checks? Because
I know.
that's.
Next, we have consideration of amendment to the town council rules and procedures, and I believe, Kenny, you
Yes,
got
ma'am.
that?
At the last meeting, council had made the recommendation to change the meeting time from 6:30 back to 6 PM. In order to do that, you'll have to amend your rules of procedure, which is no problem. The second thing you'll have to do is amend the code of ordinances, which will require a public hearing. So if council wishes to move their meetings from 6:30 to 6, I would suggest setting a public hearing date for August 18th to amend the code of ordinances.
Move to set a public hearing date for August 18th.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. It passes. We'll have a public hearing August 18th.
And I do want to say, just for the record, that the kind of brief history of that was, it had been 6 o'clock for a long time. And then for a previous council member who couldn't get here till 6:30, it was moved. So this is just sort of going back to the original.
Right.
Can I make one caveat to that, if I may? Since we're doing the whole COVID thing, nobody can come in. Can we have people email in or call in or mail in their questions or comments for the public hearing?
Thought they could do that anyway.
Yeah, I think they can.
Is that correct? They can- Well, there's
We
confusion.
don't-
Whether they
we-
can or can't, there's confusion after. I'd just like
Yeah.
for it to be slated and people know
Yeah.
can.
They can send them in, and we will, staff provide them to you guys, but we haven't been reading them aloud at the meetings.
Right.
So-
Well, since this is a public hearing, it seems like, yeah, we've got to have a way to get those
Yeah.
to us.
I think with the situation going on.
Yeah.
I think we can do
We'll have to
that.
look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We could do what we did back when we were doing the Zoom meetings and have, representation that way and have it read out, or
It shouldn't be a problem.
I misunderstood you, Lawrence. I thought you meant in general, just having people bringing stuff in. I wasn't thinking about the hearing.
Yeah. Now we have consideration of approval of the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and I believe Matt Johnson has this presentation.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. At this time, I'd like to have you guys consider adopting the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which was presented to you at the last meeting by Nick Lowe with McAdams Companies. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that they did go back and provide some updates based on some feedback that was given. So a few typos that were found. I believe Mayor Pro Tem Wolf had a couple of those, and that's a good catch. There's a copy that's been provided to you in your packet, but I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
I have questions, but
Well,
let's start your side.
round robin, go around the room. Of course, I will admit, and it's nobody's fault, it's my own, the executive summary, I really had a hard time reading the print and the graphs. Of course, my eyesight is no secret, is not very great.
I'm with you.
So I had a really hard time on reading some of those graphs. But of course, and I know that y'all spent a lot of time, and I want to hear what John has to say because he was the council representative on this. A lot of time on this, a lot of information on the plan. But the thing that I am wondering about, I guess, is this leaving the ball fields out, baseball fields out. Because, and the reasoning, what we have heard is that because they may be done at the Johnson project. Well, that has yet to come to before the planning board or the council, so that's an unknown factor. So to me, it doesn't seem logical to leave that out of our current plan that we're being asked to approve. That's just my feeling.
I'd be happy to speak to that. I think that a lot of that information is misinformation that's being conveyed by some groups that are out there. If you remember that several years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, when Ms. Billings was the interim manager, there was some discussion with the council at that point about the state of the condition of the ball fields, the drainage, the lighting. The use has gone down quite a bit because I think JYL was a primary user at that time. There was a storm that came through and took down 2 of the light poles that were existing at the time. Insurance paid to put the light poles back up, but they couldn't successfully light the field with just 2 poles.
Right.
So in over the years and discussions with this, we've talked about the idea that maybe that's not the best location for them. With the extreme amount of money that would take to renovate the fields, the issue that you brought up has come up as sort of an aside. It came up much later. It came up way after we were into the process, that this may be an option for us at the Johnson property. That was never a consideration prior to this plan coming up. So it's just an opportunity that presented itself. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and the Steering Committee both recommended in favor of looking at other options for this property. If we're going to spend the money to renovate the property, we felt like it would be better use given the surveys results that we received.
And those baseballs didn't score high on the surveys.
Right.
In some areas, however, I think Lawrence saw another area where it was a high priority. So it was a bit confusing too.
It's also on the
In here.
executive summary page.
Yeah, I saw that, which was a new picture. Yeah, that was different from last time. And so that was a little bit confusing because it looked like it didn't score high, but then there was an area where it did.
Well,
So
page 105, I mean, it's showing the numbers in baseball is 4.44% in activities, but I mean, golf was only 11.5. So, you know, football we can't offer, soccer we already have, and golf and basketball, we got the one little court. So I'm with Martha, I have concern in ditching something, and I was on the board when we approved money to fix that, those courses or fix the ball fields multiple times, and there for a while, the hill that you're talking about, it's all red mud and clay and everything else was taken care of. But it sounds to me like we just let the ball drop and didn't keep up with it.
They've had under drainage issues on the fields for several years. We've looked at trying to renovate it. It's going to be very costly to renovate the existing fields. As the Johnson property thing has been discussed It has been offered to us that they could reserve a section of property for Parks and Recreation. They would, my understanding is that they would build the fields to our specs and present it to us at the end of the project as a turnkey donation to the town. That remains to be seen.
Yeah,
We
that's
haven't
fine.
gotten to that
Yeah,
point.
I
yet.
Yeah, that's,
I wouldn't even
I
wanna
wouldn't even
talk about
discuss
that.
it
That
Sure.
yet because it hasn't come before planning board, it hadn't come before council. It's just
Absolutely. I just want to
unknown
address that
factor.
issue. I
Well,
mean,
that's good to know. Of course, and I remember we did apply for a Partif grant and had the baseball fields in there the last time we applied, and of course, we didn't get it that year.
The main reason for doing this plan is to seek grant funding. If you'll notice, there's a big number at the end of
Yeah.
that survey and the end of the plan. That is certainly something that we could do in phases. Our anticipation would be that we would apply for a Partif grant at some time in the not too distant future to try to address some of the issues that people would like to see. We scored very well with the outdoor recreation components that we're already doing, some of the programming that we have at Ren Miller Park, which we unfortunately have not been able to do this year. I hate that, but we hope that the spring of next year will bring us something different.
Yeah,
But
right.
that being said, I don't want anybody to think that this is something that we're going to pull the trigger on next year. I think Judy would probably come and
Yeah.
get very upset
Well,
with me.
you couldn't do that, yeah.
But it is a planning tool. It's something that we would like to use to try to garner some support from grant funding. Maybe take a section or two of this at a time and look at it. We feel like that there are other opportunities out there for baseball fields. I think that they would score better in our survey had they been lighted and people were able to use it. It's just been several years since people have really been able to use that.
Well, I mean, it honestly, for the past few years when we've brought up, we would like to, fund getting some lighting out there. We've been told, well, there's a parks plan coming up and we can work it into there. And so that was extra disappointing that, we get the parks plan and there's no field at all, not just a lower quality. So I don't know, to me, I would really want to see whether it's a plan A and plan B or at least there's this space that could be used for that, and if another opportunity would come up somewhere else, or if we found another space in town that made more sense. But I really am concerned about taking it out altogether, especially based on recent years, which we didn't have anything to offer. And so, when I'm looking around and I see Brent's kids and they're going to High Point and, they're not in, it's just taking away from JYL because people are going other places because we don't have fields here.
Exactly.
And if they're going all the way to other communities to play, I don't know.
The
Baseball
use-
is a very basic thing. And
So-
softball,
The use that you're turning it into, in the plan, it's just a grassy field amphitheater type thing?
There were a number of things that they were proposed, including a indoor-outdoor exercise facility that, you could open the doors and experience the outside, or if the weather was like it is right now, it's extremely hot, or it was snowing, or it's cold and rainy, they could close the doors. Inside, outside type of
You'd
equipment
still have
area.
drainage, you'd still have the hill to work with, you'd still have all the things that you're talking about now, along with building a facility on it in order to make that work.
So a couple of things about the entire project that, at least as far as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but originally we had two plans, okay? And one plan had like a splash pad and a bunch of other stuff that, quite frankly, the overhead to maintain it was going to be way too high.
Yeah.
Not to mention the liability and other factors that go along with it. But the key thing that was kind of a consistent theme between the two was the right half, the part closer to the entrance to the golf course, which had like a small dog park and a large dog park, a relocated volleyball field, a refurbished playground, renovated basketball courts, and that entire area is kind of ready to go just based on the way it's laid out now. There wouldn't be any major undertaking except for, this was what was discussed. Then there was the other side with the ballpark. So my understanding, and again, this is where I may be wrong, but let's max out the plan from the standpoint of let's see what's possible from a funding standpoint. And from a funding standpoint, let's put all the possibilities on one plan so we could submit it. Not saying this would be the ultimate project, because correct me if I'm wrong, it's $4 to $5 million, something huge.
That's correct.
And there's no way we would try to do all that anywhere near one fell swoop, even if we had all the money in the world. And Judy's already shooting me the eye dagger. So, I mean, I'm just saying. So, I mean, my point was just that it wasn't so much, because like you guys, I'm not saying one about, the Johnson property, that's over here. We're talking about the park. We're talking about what we want to do with the park. So, we either need to do something with the baseball fields as they stand, or we need to have a definitive plan that says they're going somewhere else. But this and this stage of it, based on all the conversations that have transpired, and a lot of it now is on YouTube, but was to see what we can put together so that we can start putting out requests, because the request process can't happen unless we can show them a finished product and say, highest and best use on the best day ever, this would be what we would do. Doesn't mean we're going to do it all right now. Doesn't mean we're going to get all the funding to do it right now. This could take years.
Oh, yeah, it will.
But, for me personally, from the conversations I was involved in, looking at what could be done, just starting with the kids' playground. That was kind of a passion point for me. I've had kids and they're all grown up now, so they don't go out and play, but the equipment needs to be upgraded. So that's a great place to start. And then we look at shelters, we look at additional facilities, we expand on that. Now we're going dog park. And then as things evolve and the funding continues, hopefully, there would be a point where we'd have a better idea of what would be possible with the ballparks. And if there wasn't anything else possible, then we need to get the ball rolling on, let's get the lights upgraded, let's get the other things done, because we've already established that even just the lights by themselves are expensive as all get out.
Mhm.
So, I mean, either way we go with that, but that was kind of the thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just the language in terms of what we do here, in terms of the understanding that there are no absolutes. This is a plan. And the point of a plan is that the plan can be modified. But the gist of the plan was that it allows us to take the next step, which was grant funding.
When do you have to apply for a part? Is it in January?
The cycle would be this fall to January is when it's due.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure that we would probably undertake that at this particular juncture.
Okay.
We're dealing with an extremely small staff. We have a lot of projects under tow right now. Recreation only has two full-time employees, one part-time employee. One of the reasons that we focused on areas of things that would not take a tremendous amount of staff to upkeep. So we didn't want to try to add to that. The existing fields, we estimated would take between $500,000 and $750,000 to renovate, and you're still left with smaller baseball fields. The opportunity to move them to a different location presented itself. We will consider that much later. But while we were doing the plan, we tried to incorporate the feedback that we had gotten from the citizens and the survey that was done to incorporate some of those aspects. One of the things that we did receive a lot of comment on was splash pad, as Mr. Cape said. That's not something that we can financially undertake right at this point because it requires a tremendous amount of attention from staff. So that did get ratcheted down in the plan, even though statistically it did come in as a valued amenity.
Well, and in looking at it, the plan, I guess, well, most plans, you're looking at them being like a 10-year plan.
Absolutely.
And but that it calls for programming. So it would mean actually setting up a Parks and Rec department and then having staff, not just for maintaining, but to do programs or partnerships with programs.
And we do a tremendous amount of programming now. I mean,
But
I
if you
say
look
that
at the
without
things they've
COVID.
got, you're talking about
Sure.
your senior citizens, activities, wellness activities, educational, environmental activities. So it's having a staff person or someone to coordinate those programs. So it's
Sure.
and then I didn't know if during your meetings, remember AARP, the livable communities, if some of those aspects were taken into consideration in this plan in case we ever did become a member with them.
They actually were, and
Okay.
a lot of that, when Rebecca initially brought that up, we kind of jumped into it in regards to having benches that were sittable that sat higher, taking into
Correct.
account, things
Yeah,
like that,
correct.
or other things that would be more supportive of multi-generational.
Yeah, right.
To the point that, it would allow easier access, it would allow allow a grandparent to take a grandchild
Mhm.
and not, fall over from exposure,
Right,
or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, those type of things were immediately thrown out in terms of what's possible. So
good.
for example, with the playground specifically, it would ideally, there'd be at least one very large picnic shelter. There was talk about other potential shelters. There was talk of, what can we do to make this more of a family-friendly environment that's all inclusive? You could be 6 or you could be 75
Mhm,
and
yeah.
it still works,
Right.
even
Very
to the
good.
point of potential exercise options adjacent to where the kids would play.
Mhm.
And also taking advantage of any natural tree areas so that we wouldn't necessarily have to take anything down. If anything, we could augment and utilize what was already there.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So that we could take advantage of that shade depending
Yeah.
on where it was at.
yeah.
So.
Good.
the
So those
thought-
were
Yeah,
thought
so I
of.
mean, it was, but see, the thing is that the catch-22, and it's not necessarily a problem, it's just about how we approach this, is that it's not that, there's nothing wrong with this plan. There are aspects of it that might take place in conjunction with another piece of property that's up for discussion, but the question became, okay, we have limited staff, we can't reinvent the world here, we're not gonna hire a bunch of people, it's not gonna happen, or municipality, it's just not gonna happen, we can't afford it. But can we go ahead and start moving forward with saying, well, let's start here, let's pick this spot, and then, from a creativity standpoint, the ballpark and all that other stuff got thrown in with it.
Well,
But-
can't you, I think like Rebecca had said, have option A and B. I think you originally had a couple of plans and then you sort of combined them from the YouTube meeting that I witnessed. So at least have that option out there.
I will
To be
clarify
approved
that
in that.
neither of those included keeping the ball fields in that particular location.
One was to move them then?
It was,
It was
was
predicated on
either-
ballparks going somewhere.
it was either move them or remove them.
I mean, yeah,
If that
move
makes
them,
sense.
move them on the site of the park.
It was never discussion to move them on the side of the park. It was, I think that's a storm. It was either take them out entirely.
Oh,
And then that was the original discussion, was they're not being used to their fullest extent, mostly because of lighting. From what we've heard, JYL was the main user of the ball fields. They use them for practice exclusively
Yeah.
because they cannot conduct games there because it's not lighted.
right.
We were looking at a tremendous amount of expenditure to put lights into that.
Oh, yeah.
And so we decided that, given the things that people wanted to see, it would probably be a better bang for the buck to look for grant funding that would allow us to add a new amenity. We cannot get grant funding to renovate a current amenity, if that makes sense.
It has to be a new use.
It has to be a brand new use.
Okay.
So we looked at options that would allow us to utilize that property in a new and
I'd forgotten that was,
new
I
way.
forgot that was
Maximize
one
the
of the,
funding.
Right, and it was
Yeah.
sort of fortuitous that
I
we,
remember that.
we had this opportunity that might come up. I mean, again, that remains to be seen.
Well, I
It may
wouldn't-
be
yeah.
that it happens, it may be that it doesn't.
well.
I can't
and-
speak to
and
that.
There may be other civic uses that would be more inclusive for the community to have, to
Sure.
speak about for that piece of property.
Sure.
But so it makes
Well,
their logic to have that.
I'm
on there.
old school. I have kids and I have grandkids. I've taken my kids to the ball games. I've taken my grandkids to my kids and my grandkids to the park play area that we have out there. Whoever quoted us $750,000 to work on that hill, I think we need to find some different vendors
That's,
on something of that.
lighting the two fields would cost approximately $500,000.
Well, you said 500 to $750,000.
That, and we have drainage issues. We would have to
Well, all that
basically
aside,
blow it up.
You know, everybody else has had their chance to say
Yeah.
what they want to say.
Yeah.
There's no way I'd be for something that we would take away ball fields. I mean, baseball and apple pie is American. We're going to take away one of the things in Jamestown that could potentially bring people to us. To your point, if we don't have lights, spend some money on some lights so we get people back out there and get the interest back out there. But if you put a close sign on it and keep the lights off, nobody's going to come to it. So I just don't see us getting rid of something that has been there for dadgum ever. I mean, my kids played on the field, so I just don't get it. I understand moving forward in certain areas, but just to build a big old grass field for people to come out and stand around, I don't get it. That's my 2 cents.
You have a way with words.
My 2 cents.
Either way we went though, I mean, the thing is, a lot of this would stay up in the air based on the timing and what direction we took. So I didn't, to be candid, I don't, where the ballparks are concerned, I would love to see the lights added, but if we look at the cost of doing that up front, when we might do something different in, let's say, 4 years, I don't know how that averages out or if it's, cost effective to consider doing it. Either way, the ballparks would stay put. A lot of the focus is going to start with the smaller things that are more actionable, that can show results. And that would all start on the other end of the plan. Now that's predicated on the current discussions. Like any plan, plans can be subject to change if we have other opportunities present themselves. But there's so much stuff that's up in the air. The question was, can we put together something that we can present as a plan that allows us to get some traction on, so that, because we know it's going to be a long process, we can look at potential funding avenues. And then as we draw closer, have a more serious discussion about even realistically moving. I don't know that they get moved, to be candid with you. I just don't know, because right now that's not an option. Lighting would be.
But your plan that you put forward is taking the ball fields out. And out of sight is out of mind, and out of mind means you forget about it and move on.
Well, and we have over the years, again, I mean, prior to me being on council, I remember sitting in the seats and hearing people, on council ask, hey, I have kids, or I have friends with kids, or I'm talking to JYL and they're complaining because there are no lights and we're just losing these people, and we're losing the organizations that could be coming to us. And I just feel like the answer has been, well, wait a few years, or we're going to be working on a plan so we can incorporate it into the plan. And then now, like Lawrence is saying, when it's not in the plan, I just don't like that has been removed. And then the reason given is because no one was using it. Well, of course, no one's using it because we've, pretty much
Right.
erased it.
To
So
the point where
I
wait,
do want to
it's
say,
getting old.
I mean, the plan is beautiful. Like, it's certainly,
It
the
is, yeah.
presentation was amazing, everything
Oh.
in there. It looks very much like, a place I would want to go, and
Yeah.
it's something we would be proud of having. There is just this sticking point with the field, and if there would be, a way to show that it could be a possibility in the future,
I just remember going by there and being there with kids lined on that whole grassy knoll, or whatever you want to call that area, and everybody just having a great big old time, and the ballpark was full.
Right.
And we as a town have just let it go down.
I think part of it though is it was a perfect storm of events as I understand it. I mean, I wasn't directly involved in the decision making, but I do remember pretty clearly. I mean, 08 hit, everybody suddenly all out of cash, don't want to spend a dime on anything, which made perfect sense.
Right.
Around that same time, correct me if my timeline's off, but we had the problems with the lights, give or take.
Right.
And based on that, we said, well, we're going to hold on that too, because that's a lot of upfront cash will be coming out of our coffers, and we weren't doing as well as we're doing now. Thank you, Judy. So you continue to move forward with that. Now we're at a point where it's government, so nothing moves at a decent clip, but we're moving forward with some planning. And, I would be just as fine with the half that I'm looking at on my screen right now and the other two things being ball fields, and we just say, let's replenish them as is and continue with our lives. The problem is, to Matt's point, to maximize, stop me if I'm wrong on this, but if to maximize potential funding, we have to show alternative uses to even have the discussion and consideration that, we might be able to move forward with this. Maybe we do it, maybe we don't, but at least it's there. Doesn't mean we have to move forward with it per se. We could still call an audible and say it stays just the way it is. Let's get the lights in there. Let's move forward. Because right now, if we do anything with the ballpark right now, we say we're gonna do it right now, it's still gonna be a while before we get anything done with it light-wise. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, PARTF for short, is our main source of Parks and Recreation funding. There are some other limited sources, but that would be the main one. They will not fund a renovation project. They feel like if you have amenities that you should improve them and keep them up on your own. It would take us looking at a completely different use for the property, which is why that came out. That was the scope of the project.
But we would still have like a children's play area with, you know, playground, we would still have shelters. So how does that not fall under the
So
same?
some of that would be on our dime.
Okay.
Right.
So they would,
Right,
even if it was moved
absolutely.
to a different place or different stuff.
That's
I
correct.
think you showed two options, Matt.
And-
Option A and B.
And I was going to say, I mean, I can certainly go back to McAdams and try to reengage them and see what it would take cost-wise for us to do a secondary plan, Plan B, if you will, that shows in this particular case, probably what we would do is just keep exactly what we have and just get a cost estimate for upgrading the ball fields as they stand. Is that reasonable?
I'm good with that too.
And you're not in a time crunch that we have to approve this. If you can bring that back next month and we can look at that as.
We can certainly bring it
as an
back.
option with this approved plan and and approve them at the same time.
Sure. I don't think there's as much of a time crunch because I don't think we're looking as a municipality to apply for that grant funding this
This time.
cycle.
Okay,
Right.
I got you. Okay.
With the
Well,
COVID-19 and the United States in such a turmoil when it comes to funds, what's the chances of part of even sending out 50 cents?
It's pretty stable. Parks and Recreation Trust Fund is funded. So I don't think in fact, my understanding is Scott went to the conference this past fall. He knows a little bit more about the situation, but my understanding was that they were going to allocate an additional amount of money this particular cycle just to try to get some of the backlog of projects kind of through the system. Which would be better if we did apply this year, but again, we're a limited staff
yeah,
and
you
we have a
wanna-
lot going on.
Yeah, it's a lot to apply. I remember very
Sure.
well the paperwork itself. So, yeah.
It's a tremendous amount of work and it's extremely competitive.
And it takes a long time, yeah. Well, again, I think it's a great plan. I'm with you, and I commend you all. I know you put in the work, but I certainly would appreciate if you could go back and get us that second option, when that is what the council desires.
That's what,
Is that-
I mean, I'll support it, whichever way.
So do we need to make a motion to continue this to the August 18th meeting?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, man. I appreciate you doing that. And thank you, John, for sitting through all of that, and giving us those explanations. Don't let me get all of this time, because I have to go through my stack. Okay, I think now we've got manager's report.
Council, just let you know, I was going through my files today and I was trying to get an update on working on the update on the code. And I had noticed I had missed my July 10th report. Day I was
We
out of
knew.
town. I'm sorry,
We knew,
you did?
yes.
Tell me. But no, I noticed that, but the governor's executive order naturally was extended another, want to continue to operate the way we are. We'll probably look at taking our timeline and pushing it out a couple of weeks. And even we've discussed it, all staff, we've discussed it, and, you know, some of us, still, we don't even feel comfortable doing that. So I will update that opening schedule reflecting what the governor has suggested, but it's still open. I'm also open to council. If you have recommendations on it, we'd love to hear you. Projects, you'll get an update from our town attorney to go in and board at windows, doors on houses that I go out one week and they're okay. The next week you see a door kicked in. So they did respond back and they are going to take care of it within 30 days. Okay.
Working with DOT and following up on that and making that entrance sign look even better with his of landscape grading and the storm drainage pipe, which wasn't originally in there, but he worked hard and he got DOT to agree, and it's going to be a much aesthetically pleasing project. And I say, yay, Paul.
Yay, Paul.
And also flowers, they're very tickled with that sign.
Right. Yeah, it was, that's a
You know,
wonderful
Very beginning,
partnership.
it was like we were pushing and shoving a little bit,
Yeah.
but they were the way it turned out.
It's great when a plan comes together, isn't it?
Yeah. East Fork Road, naturally, they opened up July 13th, substantial completed. You've got East Main Street, all the curb and gutter has been installed. A lot of the sidewalk has been installed on this side of Main Street. I'm sure you've been out to see it. Some of us aborted because it's such a long delay, but they're making progress there. We do have one new hire, sanitation department. We have Chris Eaton, will start August 4th in sanitation department. Very pleased to get that filled so quick.
Yeah, that's great.
And just the last thing is to point out our employee spotlight
Yeah.
for the month. I'm gonna give this to you every month at the council meeting, so you'll get to know them. But this is David Ingram. He works the golf course.
Yeah.
And I think he's been there
He's
30
been
years.
there forever, 30 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Way to go,
he's-
David.
So he's
He was a
very
baby when he
pleased.
started.
Yeah. So,
Well, could I ask Paul to come up here? I've got a little something for you in honor of East Fork Road Bridge opening.
And it's not ticking, Paul, just so you know. It's not.
It's a piece of the railing.
It's a Mary Kay kit, and
He aged quite a bit.
it's perfect.
This little pedestrian bridge.
Just what you needed. Your own bridge. Yeah, wonderful.
That's the Blanchard Bridge.
Nice.
I
Nice
know. Now, I think we've got committee reports. Does any council members have a committee report?
I do not.
No. Well, I do. I will say that the TAC had their Microsoft Teams meeting on June 23rd. Of course, they reiterated that DOT, which has been no secret, and they are working hopefully with legislature in Raleigh to come up with some solutions. But one number that I had not heard, we've talked a little bit about the MAP Act, of which DOT was a lawsuit, which they lost, and now they are paying lawsuits on a case basis as they go through the court system. And as of June 23rd, they have paid $700 million to date. And that's on top of the budgetary shortfalls they've had, the $300 million in the emergency fund that's been paid over the last few years for Florence and
What was
well,
the name of that
Matthew.
act?
Huh?
What was the name?
The MAP Act, there was, DOT could really hold landowners from selling their property if it was in the path of a project. Sometimes these projects don't come to fruition for 10, 20 years. They're really have to pay them. It's basically taking your land without paying. So, and that is still ongoing. I don't know how many cases are left, but it's still ongoing.
Any of them for the bypass?
No, not to my knowledge. That's a good question, but not to my knowledge. And they did also at that meeting, the MPO did approve the Penny Road project has been extended out to the fiscal year 2023. So the one that we had not funded, they have moved that out. And they do not hold a meeting in July. And then the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee held a Zoom meeting on July 6th. And the only thing for discussion at that meeting was the community engagement during the CB19. And I've got some flyers I was going to hand out to you. If you'll, well, it's sort of going to be hard to do. And Katie, I have you one over here I can give to you or.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. My big concern was doing everything online. and surveys. And so we went round and round with how to have some in-person interviews on people's opinion, citizens of Jamestown. And the consultant and Matt came up with this schedule. There are in-person conversations, which you'll see is 2 dates with several slots available, and they will have up to 6 participants per slot. And then also they're doing it online as well. I just got this flyer yesterday, and the committee did, and we had yesterday and today that I did go to personally and visit with some folks to invite them. But I believe it is now gone public on Facebook and the website, and it's on the Envision Jamestown website. And it's first come, first serve. But I would just encourage you as council members too, if you know some people that live in town that you think would want to do, especially the in-person, to please, I would contact them as soon as possible because there is limited space available. But I really felt it was important we offer some. And that's all that I have, unless you've got questions about that, about this flyer or the meetings.
On and just to kind of reiterate, as I've said before, as council, we really need to hear from folks who live in town, folks who are taxpayers, since we're making decisions about taxpayer dollars. And, we are elected to represent folks who live in Jamestown. So we want to make sure that that's very clear when we get this information from Benchmark, that we're hearing from the
Yes.
folks that we represent.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
And from all across the town too,
Yes,
not,
every
only-
subdivision, neighborhood.
Right.
That's what I've been trying to go to different neighborhoods to at least contact one person and invite them.
Agreed. Yeah, totally agree.
Katie, did anyone sign up for the second public comment? Go ahead, Lawrence, yeah.
Kenny, on the 2nd of June, we started talking about trash can potentials. That meeting in June, you said that we were looking at something. The last meeting, we were looking at something. Where were we looking at something?
I sent you the email, and staff got together and we come up with a sort of like a compromise of a container with like a lid on it. And what they could do is go out and just open the container, pull the bags out, and throw it in the back of the truck.
Yeah, I got the general that y'all were looking at that, but I didn't get anything that talked about the specifics of it or what it would take from us to maybe start doing that to get it rolling. So what do we need
Well,
to do
it'd
to
be
make
up
it
to the
move?
property owners to buy. I think it's what we discussed, the email
Right.
that I sent, the property owner would buy that. And, we even pulled the trash driver in and the 2 guys on the back of the truck, and Paula and I, we said, okay, how can we accommodate something until we go full service with trash bins? And they really didn't have a citizen picking up a trash can. They didn't want to go out and pick up a trash can because a lot of times people will load those full and they just said they couldn't load it in the back of the truck. So the best thing was, I think it was Home Depot sold like I forgot, 6-7 cubic yard container with a lid on it. It's got wheels on that could roll it out there. It would be better than throwing something over the trash. And that way the guys said they would just walk up and pull it out there and throw it in the back of the truck. So I think you had like 6 or 7 people that.
And we all need to be able to tell, especially the people who have complained,
Yeah,
their option there, yeah.
yeah, the email that you sent, I didn't get any of that information other than you guys were just looking at the style and potential cart. I think I forwarded it to folks.
We did
Well,
forward it, but if there is a particular name or model number or something.
Well, I don't have, you can get them, I don't want to sell one business. Lowe's can get them, Ace Hardware, whatever.
Right, I think if we can get a general consensus on the style, the shape, and what's gonna work, where it should be.
I mean, that
this
would
is
be up to the
temporary,
property
those
owner
sort
what
of
they
things.
want. I mean,
Right,
you
but
know.
this is temporary, is, something that I guess we need to set something up and get it going so that we can get it out to the folks, and the folks will know you can do this. So we can stop hearing about pros tearing up garbage bags.
Yeah, that you wanted this as an agenda item. I think if we just had a couple people in town that wanted a quick fix. And like I said, the guys came up with a container, and there's actually a couple people in town still already doing that, so.
Well, if we could all get that email and then know what to tell, and also if we could get the people who have complained or in public comment the last several months. I know you know of one, but there was someone from the crossings, I remember that complained, but the people who have complained in the last 6 months, and then we can give them these options. They know what they can do until such time as we do some other kind of trash thing. Is that
Agreed. Yeah,
commendable?
something, just some resolution so that people can start moving forward.
Yeah. So can you supply us with that
Sure, I'd be
information?
glad to.
Okay.
I'm forwarding
And
the
then the other
email
thing-
out. I think it's just the way it was written. I too thought this was just, here's some things that they thought of. I didn't realize people would actually buy those.
Could do
now.
it.
So you did
Yeah,
have
That was the general impression. I
the
got.
picture of it and everything.
Yeah, that just
See,
one.
my emails don't show any of that stuff.
Oh, I
I've
did,
asked
I did.
to get that thing taken care of or be able to view it on this thing. But anyway, I didn't get that, so I don't even know what y'all are looking at that I forwarded
Yeah.
to you guys.
Okay, well, if you could circulate that information
Sure, I'd
again.
glad to. Yeah.
And
then
the other thing, the recycling, we've got the one-armed bandit that's running around now, and there's a lot of discussion on internet on people not getting their cardboard picked up, or if it's sitting on the top, or if it's sitting beside, they're not getting out, this, that, and the other. Can we have conversation with the recyclers and find out exactly what they want us to do?
Yeah, I think
So we can
Paul-
re-educate the public and which way now they got to turn the can around the other way so that the lid doesn't interfere with the recyclables going into the truck. I watched him dump one that was backwards across the street and everything went in the street. He got out and picked it up. To be the water bill or something like that.
Yeah, well, actually, Paul and I had a discussion with the management there, and at that time, they were bringing in the one-armed bandit to try it out. Was that correct, Paul? They were trying it out.
Yes, they just didn't tell us the schedule. We just did not know what they were.
Yeah, it was like 1 week, it was like, oh gosh, cardboard didn't get picked up. So we called them up and they said they were trying that. So,
Well, the truck's been out there long before that, because I've seen it.
okay, that's the first we'd heard of it, so.
And then just one other thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
The email that you guys sent that we'd had somebody on one of our committees that had sent out some information that was not factual, and that you guys had reached out to them and tried to get it corrected. Have we gotten any resolution there? Is that person corrected, or at least, you know, they're representing the town on the committee. Have they done anything to make right?
Well, I think I know which one you're talking about, but, I have not seen lately.
It's not, the original post is there. I did, just for the benefit of anyone else reading it, I wanted to make sure people understood what actually happened with the budget and that pass-through tax. So I explained it on the post, but the original person didn't comment on it, and it's, as far as I know, still there.
Matt, has this person shown up for all this during those meetings? I'd like to make a motion, we dismiss this person from that committee.
Candidly, while I'm somewhat, tied into what happened. I don't know enough to be able to say I'd support you otherwise. I feel like I need to know a little bit more. I haven't looked at it since you did the update, so.
I haven't seen
I would
it.
I just don't, if it's still there, then that's a problem. And I would say second based on that, but.
Well, I haven't seen it either. I'm just going on what town is
it's
saying.
still
They're
there,
reaching out, they're trying to do
Yeah.
things with the person. The person's
Has,
not
has anyone
responding.
explicitly asked him to remove it?
I would probably, at this point, if you're going to dismiss anybody from a committee, I would do it based off the rules of maybe missing so many meetings, and then.
I don't think they were any set up for the ad hoc.
I don't know.
It's an ad hoc
Just an
committee,
ad hoc.
yeah. Well,
I put it this way. I mean, honestly, if we make a request, please take this down. He doesn't take it down, then I'm fine with it.
I was gonna say, it would be good, Kenny, if you could reach out again to him
I will
and
definitely reach out again.
not,
and
maybe
say-
not just email, by phone, and if it means after hours, to have a conversation. Because
Yeah.
it's sort of strange not to respond to you, at least sit down and meet and talk. You've got to be able to sit down and talk to each other, or,
I'd say.
Well, we as a council are asking that this person represent the town
yeah.
in this committee that they're on, and they're not responding to anything you guys are asking them or sending out to them. They're not showing up for meetings. At what point do we stop?
Yeah,
So
well,
anyway,
But I'll reach out to him.
I think your motion dies for the lack of a second. But we still would ask the town manager to try to contact this person and see what the problem is. And
If nothing
they
comes
may
of it-
may even ask them if they want to remain on the committee. May not be interested anymore. It happens.
May not be.
Yeah,
and
it
if nothing-
happens.
And if nothing comes of it, make
Yeah.
a motion again next month.
Okay. I believe now, is there any other business?
I am done.
Right here.
Well, I did wonder, before you sit down, I just wonder, has there been any more conversation about when the painting of the crosswalks might take place this budget year?
I know that we were waiting because we had all the
Uh-huh.
construction going on.
Okay, so
So
you don't see it happening until East
I
Main
do
Street's
not till Main
complete?
Street is done, because if you have that going on and these block down here for painting, it's gonna be a,
Okay, makes sense.
That'd be good.
Thank you. Mhm.
Madam Mayor, if I could just say one thing. That-
Yes.
My whole motion had nothing to do with anybody's freedom of speech whatsoever.
Right,
It's all where it boils down to factual stuff that's dealing with the town.
yes.
And the social media can mess up so many things and get so much rolling in the wrong direction.
That's okay.
And
That's
all
true.
sorts of other things that are going on with it that, again, I support it wholeheartedly in somebody's opinions and whatever they want to do, but this person is representing the town and the council vis-a-vis, we put them on this committee. So it has nothing to do with freedom of
Right.
speech whatsoever.
Right, and that's a very good point. You want to at least make sure that information is correct. And if not, please have them take it down, or at least meet, we can find out why not. Yeah. Okay, I believe we are to entertain the motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Second.
Well, we have to say to go into closed session for General Statute 143.31811A3 to discuss matters related to attorney-client privilege with Lori Heron, 2216 Guilford Road versus Town of Jamestown and Michael Young, 301 Lee Street.
So move.
Okay, and a
Second.
second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. And I don't know how we're going to go into closed session, but we are.
Very carefully. I will spray everybody with hand sanitizer if they need it.
Motion to go back in session? Second. Motion to adjourn?
Second? We did all in favor.
You're too fast. Okay, so you, Lawrence, you made a motion to go back into open session, and John, you, all opposed, none. And then Lawrence, you made a motion to adjourn, and John, you seconded, all in favor?